everyone, and welcome to a special episode of Godsaw's Turnbuckle, the wrestling video podcast I run over here on youtube.com/Godsaw, and this is a special episode of Godsaw's Turnbuckle because it is time to review WWE Stomping Grounds 2019, the show that didn't really come in with a lot of hype and basically became a very heavy rematch. A show based off of WWE Super Showdown. For people who didn't watch it, I guess it would be kind of fresh. For people who did watch it, well, they're not so amped on this one to go along with it, and based off of the build that they were going into this show to begin with. But overall, I thought it was a good show. I'm not gonna lie there. I will be taking quick drinks here and there throughout this entire process. But overall, I thought it was rather entertaining show, and in the end, I guess I'm kind of glad I ended up watching it. I thought matches ended up being pretty good to really good in many cases. The aspect of certain things, like I said, it's not a perfect show by any stretch of the imagination, but for the most part, you felt like certain things came to a close, but then certain feuds feel like they're still going to be sticking around, and I'm not too sure how much people really want those feuds to be sticking around, or myself to go along with it. But they started off the show, and I was initially thinking about doing a live reaction stream to the show, but I did not get home from work until about 20 minutes before the show. I got home literally as the Cruiserweight title match was going on, which I'm very glad I got to see the entire Cruiserweight title match, because Akira Tozawa, Drew Gulak, and Tony Nese did it was a fantastic match. And yes, on the pre-show, a fantastic match with 205 Live too. Honestly, having to admit to myself that I don't watch 205 Live as much as I probably should. I'm going to try to get more into that. Maybe we'll... I won't say we'll fit it into the whole episode of Godsaw's Turnbuckle, but I'm going to make an attempt to try to watch it more often. This is one of those matches that says, yeah, I should be watching this show a little bit more. It's an hour long. It's, from what I've always been hearing, they do a pretty good job of setting up stories going into the matches to go along with it, and they kind of pan out in the matches themselves. My pick for this one was Drew Gulak, and lo and behold, he won the match. But like I said, it was a very good match. It was a fantastic match. Good way of getting the crowd going for the show itself. And again, a lot of areas where you kind of wondering how to try to call the spots, but I'm not really going to try to call spots inside of there. I kind of encourage people to go watch these matches. You did have a bit where you did have a spot in there where Tony Nese was caught in the Gulak. I like what wrestlers come up with names for their moves sometimes. It's Drew Gulak's version of the Dragon Sleeper. He has the submission hold on Tony Nese, and then lo and behold, Akira Tozawa comes just flying into the screen with the senton. You hear the crowd kind of pumping up, and then all of a sudden you just see Akira Tozawa hit. It was good. It was well shot. The ending came where it looked like Tony Nese was going to pick up the victory. He had gotten rid of Akira Tozawa, goes for the running Nese on Drew Gulak, where Gulak actually reverses it, goes for his torture rack neck breaker, but Tony Nese lands on the outside of the ring. Akira Tozawa knocks Tony Nese out, and then Drew Gulak hits Akira Tozawa with that torture rack neck breaker to pick up the victory and to pick up the Cruiserweight title. I thought this was fun. It was fantastic. It was a good way of going and good way of starting with the pre-show in general. So this led to the beginning of the show, which it was Lacey Evans going up against Becky Lynch for the main card. I guess that you go on the aspect of you don't go on last, you go on first type thing. So you start off with Becky Lynch in this one. And honestly, they did a good match here. I thought they did a pretty good match. There was maybe a little bit of wonkiness in there, but I wouldn't say it was like overly botch filled or anything to go along with it. Overall, I thought they put on a very good match. You had Becky Lynch hitting the announce table early on in the match after a baseball slide, hitting her ribs, and she sold the ribs for most of the match. That was where Lacey Evans was making most of her attack. You had some decent back and forth to go along with that. You had Lacey Evans hitting a spring, well, it was like a sliced bread number 2, but it ended up being a stunner in the end. And then it led to a kick to the midsection for a 2 count. The ending came where Lacey Evans was going for a moonsault, ends out missing it. Becky Lynch puts the disarmer on, and immediately, like within milliseconds of the move being put on, Lacey Evans taps out, and this kind of plays into what goes on later on in the night. So overall, I thought it was a pretty good match. Fairly entertaining match on that side of everything. I think Becky Lynch has done a really good job with Lacey Evans. She has shown areas of not being too fully aware of everything inside of the ring at this point, but Becky Lynch kind of helps her to a good match with this particular one. And let's be fair to Lacey on her own right. She is very athletic and very good in the terms of the moves that she can execute. It's just sometimes her placement is a little bit off. That's where I think her issue is in the terms of being green in the ring, is that maybe she's out of position in certain cases for the moves and everything to go along with it. But overall, good match here and good way of starting off the show. You have Paul Heyman coming out of Baron Corbin's locker room. He teases Brock Lesnar. Brock says he is, or not Brock, but Baron says he is chosen as ref, but you're going to find out like everybody else at later on in the show, basically the main event. This leads to Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn taking on the New Day. And again, good match here. There is a little bit of a fire behind pretty much everybody in these matches tonight to try to impress in some way, shape, or form of trying to make this come off a lot better than what the hype has been saying for this particular show. And like I said, overall, I thought this was a rather good show. There wasn't really many down points to go along with it, and this was also one of those really good matches, to go along with it. I love the beginning of the match where Kevin Owens super kicks Big E, who's on the outside of the ring, and then immediately super kicks Xavier Woods 3 times, and they go for quick successions and pinfall attempts right off the bat to try to get the match over quickly before Big E can get in there. So they work over Xavier Woods. They work over Xavier Woods throughout the entire match after this. They weren't able to put him away. Big E finally gets himself back up on the ring apron after being knocked down a couple of different times. And Xavier Woods is able to get the hot tag, and Big E doing his running wild in there is always an amazing bit, though the scariest bit of that is always going to be that spear to the outside of the ring. That's always going to end up being scary. He does that here to Sami Zayn inside of this match. You have a spot in there where you think that it's going to be the end of the match, because it looked like they were going for New Day was going to go for the midnight hour on Sami Zayn. He gets out of it. Big E goes into the post, and then Xavier gets a boot to the face. Kevin Owens tags in, haluva kick to pop up powerbomb, and then Big E makes the save. And you thought that was over there, but it doesn't go for that particular one. And then you have some more back and forth in there. Eventually, they do get rid of Big E, and it does set up for Xavier Woods to be on the top rope. He gets knocked down by Kevin Owens, runs into a stunner, and 1, 2, 3. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, they pick up a win. What's going on? What? They got a win? Oh, okay. Well, it's been kind of, a lot of people were kind of thinking that would be the case here. Overall, I thought this was actually a really good match between the two of them, and I thought this came off really good. You had a backstage bit next with Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross. Of course, they're going off with continuing on the aspect of them trying to expose Bayley as a bad person in there, and even to a little bit of truth where Bayley did cost them those women's tag team titles on Monday night to go along with it. They play it off, it's them against the world, not just like because they feel like the entire world's on Bayley's side. So they play it up as them against the world type bit in this promo, which it kind of, that doesn't really play out inside of the actual match itself all that much. It was a very interesting one. We'll get to that match here relatively soon. Up next, though, was Ricochet going up against Samoa Joe, and you know what? Those good matches, they kept coming. They kept coming on these particular ones, and this was definitely one of them. This was an aspect of Samoa Joe's power versus the athleticism and speed of Ricochet itself. And you got those aspects of power from Samoa Joe in there, even to the point that he caught Ricochet, instead of doing the flip where someone flips and then they land on their feet, Samoa Joe flips him so much that he does a full 360 and lands on his back. So instead of landing on his feet, he keeps rotating and lands on his back in there. Ricochet hitting his areas with dives and everything to go along with it. Also, just little aspects of it to show how much power Samoa Joe had over Ricochet to go along with it. The end of the match, it was actually really well done. So Ricochet, or Samoa Joe, was going for a clothesline, which he had hit earlier, and he rotated Ricochet. So Ricochet actually rotates again, but this time lands on his feet. So he kind of rotated and went with the clothesline. He hits a code breaker and then hits the 630, picks up the victory, and gets the U.S. title. Yes, they put the U.S. title on Ricochet. Now, granted, that means another really quick title change for Samoa Joe. He doesn't really get a long run with this. But overall, I thought this was, again, another really good match. And good showing on both sides here. Ricochet, after the match, was getting congratulated in the back. He was getting congratulated in the back by, basically a bunch of NXT alums. So you had, Seth there, you had Carmella, Heavy Machinery, Charlotte was in there, and there were a few others in there to go along with it. And then he gets congratulated by Triple H before they go off, and then Heavy Machinery's music hits, and there goes Heavy Machinery out there for their SmackDown Tag Team title match against Daniel Bryan and Rowan. And you kind of had to assume what was going to go here, even though Daniel Bryan and Rowan are the heels in this match, and Heavy Machinery are the clear baby faces. At least in the terms of the setup. Of course, since they were in the Washington area, they were going to be very pro Daniel Bryan, and you did see that in this match as well. The things that I did like about this match, at least crowd side, it shows maybe Daniel Bryan's having a little bit of a difference here, because they started a please recycle chant. I liked little aspects of that, but that was little aspects of the crowd that I liked in this one. And this crowd throughout the entire night was, for the most part, into this show from beginning to end, with a few little down points in there. This is one of those areas where, yes, Daniel Bryan and Rowan picked up the victory after Daniel Bryan gets a small package on Tucker Knight. But this was an overall very good showing from Heavy Machinery. This is probably the most legit that they've looked in the entire time that they've been on the main roster. So overall, this was, even though losing, this was a very good showing for Heavy Machinery, where both of them were showing off massive athleticism. Otis himself showing resiliency throughout the entire match. No selling the kicks from Daniel Bryan at one point. And I like the whole aspect of, Daniel Bryan pokes fun at the caterpillar or the worm from Otis, but he said on SmackDown, "I'll just move." Well, this time he didn't move. So that you have little bits like that in there. It looked like they were going to go for the compactor on Daniel Bryan, but Rowan stops that from happening. Tucker Knight takes out Rowan, and that's how the small package happens. And Daniel Bryan and Rowan pick up the victory, and they win, and they keep those SmackDown Tag Team titles. overall, like I said, very good match here. Good showing for Heavy Machinery. This is one of those things that, yes, you lost, but you looked good type things, where it's like, oh, you know what? Watch out for this team because, yes, they lost here, but I feel like they can win somewhere down the line to go along with it. So overall, very good match. And this will lead us next to the SmackDown Women's title match, which it was Alexa Bliss, Raw Superstar, going up against Bayley. And yes, Nikki Cross was out there in Alexa Bliss's corner. Not really playing much of a role into the match until the end of the match with this one. Overall, this was a decent match. This wasn't one of those... It wasn't overly special. You had a couple of very high moments in the match, and the crowd was still into it throughout most of the match to go along with it, with kind of the dueling chants on there inside of here. So overall, I thought it was a pretty good match. Like I said, the high points of the match was that sunset flip bomb that Bayley does now. She did that to Alexa. I think the first time she did that was to Alexa Bliss the night after WrestleMania or something like that. It was the first time she had pulled that out. And I think it just goes to show, like, you know, Alexa Bliss, you know, attempting to do more within the ring, because she was out for a while with concussion issues, and even with that, she does not take any fear about taking this move in any way, because it looks absolutely vicious, because, you know, the opponent's head or back usually goes right into the second turnbuckle. It's a very good looking move. But outside of the ring, it looked like... so Alexa rolls outside of the ring. Nikki Cross is there to try to help Alexa up. As Bayley is going for a dive on Alexa, Alexa either kind of just gets out of the way and pulls Nikki into there, or just gets out of the way and lets Nikki take the full brunt of Bayley, who's like, oh crap, I hit the wrong person type moment. And Alexa throws Bayley into the steel steps and hits a code red outside of the ring, looking where it looked like she may pick up the victory. She was going to go for Twisted Bliss, and this was an interesting little bit here, because I think they either messed the setup up or however it was supposed to go. But Nikki Cross gets in the ring. It looks like she's going to go after Bayley. So this distracts Alexa. Bayley jumps up to the second rope, but Alexa knocks her back off, goes for Twisted Bliss, but Bayley counters it and then hits the Bayley to belly to pick up the victory. I don't know if that was how it was originally supposed to go, because it did come off a little bit wonky, and you kind of saw it at the end of the match as well. To go along with that, who knows with that particular one, and who knows where they're really going with this storyline. It's not an aspect of, you didn't really get a sense of any type of either heel turn for Bayley, or you didn't get a sense of like Alexa getting mad at Nikki. Like, Nikki was in the ring afterwards vehemently apologizing, and Alexa's kind of like, what just happened, to go along with it. I don't know if they're finishing this storyline quite yet. I feel like they should move Bayley away from Alexa Bliss and kind of move the SmackDown Women's title to being against SmackDown people versus it being a Raw and SmackDown type thing. So I feel like this kind of needs to be a one-off, but I don't know if they're going to end this storyline here. Or is this kind of the catalyst for Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross to go along with it? Was just this match with that particular one. It kind of, they kind of have Bayley finally go over Alexa Bliss here, but they're catalyzing that also for Nikki Cross and Alexa. That, like, they could be doing something there. Does it come off where Alexa just goes off on Nikki Cross for costing her the match or anything like that, or does it come off as like, oh, Nikki knew what was going on the entire time and she purposefully did what she did at the end of the match? We'll see where they go with it, but like, there's a piece of me that thinks they're gonna have another match with Alexa and Bayley somewhere down the line here, where, like I said, I feel like they should move Bayley with a SmackDown Women's title away from any Raw people, and have the SmackDown people start getting built up into particular matches with her. But I could see them also doing another thing with her and Alexa somewhere down the line here. We'll see where that one ends out going, though. Up next, before we got to Roman and Drew McIntyre, you have Ricochet backstage taking pictures with the U.S. title, and lo and behold, who comes up, and they're being all friendly and everything. It's Gallows and Anderson. So they're being all friendly, throwing up the two sweets, everything like that. They're having some fun. AJ Styles comes in, congratulates them on winning. He takes a pose with them, then they do the two sweet to go along with it, and he goes like, you know what? Congratulations. I'll see you tomorrow night. I was kind of hoping that maybe we would get Ricochet and Ray, but I'm all in for a Ricochet AJ Styles match if they decide to build the story correctly, which I know it's WWE and everything, but give them time. Just give them time. They gave time to Samoa Joe and him. Give them time and let those two go out there and have a really banger, crazy good match, hopefully, with that one. That is one that would be exciting to watch as well. Also, I want to see Ricochet and Rey Mysterio again. From the first time that those two had a match together down in Lucha Underground when it was Prince Puma and Rey Mysterio. I would love to see that again at some point in time as well. Up next was Drew McIntyre going up against Roman Reigns. This was a good match. I'm not going to lie. Good bell-to-bell action. Maybe a little too much Shane in this match to go along with it, but overall decent enough match. Roman Reigns just pick up the victory in this one. The way they built through this match, it felt like it was a 2-on-1 handicap match, which we get a segment later, which kind of sets even more of that up, where Shane was trying to garner advantage for Drew in certain aspects. You had Shane get chased around the arena, and then when Roman goes to do a dive over the barricade, Drew punches him and knocks him down that way, and then Drew hits that absolutely wicked looking Alabama Slam, that reverse Alabama Slam. To Roman. He did it to the announce table and then gets him back into the ring for a 2 count. Roman, he goes to the top rope. He does eat a Superman punch, gets a 2 count. Shane McMahon eats a couple of Superman punches as well. Roman eventually does hit a spear. Shane goes for the breakup, but Drew has to kick out because Shane may have came in just a little too late with that one, and eventually Shane himself hits a coast to coast, which does not actually pick up the victory because the ref was still down, so they had to get ref back into the ring, and eventually Roman picks up the victory after taking care of Shane and hitting another spear to Drew McIntyre. And basically tonight Roman was just too much on that one. So overall, I thought it was a decent enough match. Later in the night, after the Dolph Ziggler Kofi Kingston match, which we'll talk about next, Shane was cutting a promo backstage with Drew, who was absolutely incensed, and sets up a 2-on-1 handicap match with him and Shane for tomorrow night against Roman. With that one. So there we go. We got that handicap match where I think a lot of people were thinking it was going to happen at Extreme Rules. It's happening tomorrow night. Then again, I don't think don't put it past them to just do the match again at Extreme Rules as well. So this does bring us to Kofi Kingston and Dolph Ziggler and in a steel cage match, and this felt interesting. On this one, I felt like this match was good, and I thought they did use the cage decently throughout this entire match, and it did feel like they were going into a very submission heavy base to a certain spot as well. I absolutely loved the ending. I thought the ending was absolutely great. This match probably dragged just a little bit though. Again, I felt like they had good usage of the cage itself, but overall there was something missing about it. And maybe it's just the effectiveness of the cage match in the PG era where you can't necessarily use blood or anything on that one. And don't get me wrong, you can have a good cage match without necessarily using blood. This one just wasn't up there in the terms of good. cage matches. It was decent, don't get it wrong. And the ending was absolutely fantastic. So you have both of them trying to fight to get out of the door, where Kofi's hanging out by his hands. Dolph at one point was hanging out by his feet as well. Dolph kicks Kofi Kingston off and continues going after the door. He kicks him off again and goes through the door. So Kofi Kingston, in an act of desperation, instead of going after Dolph to try to pull him back in the ring, he runs to the door, dives through the second rope and over Dolph to land on the ground before he did and pick up the victory. In the terms of a cage match spot, I've never seen that one. So well done on that to come up with a creative spot to end that match. The overall match I felt was decent, but not up to snuff on that one. And maybe that was just an aspect of kind of knowing that were they really going to make Dolph kind of a legitimate threat? And I don't think they ever really portrayed him well enough to be a legitimate threat to Kofi Kingston and inside of there. And you never really felt like the title had a chance of changing hands. But very creative spot there. I did enjoy that finish. An overall decent match. So this leads us to the main event, which is Baron Corbin going up against Seth Rollins. And there's that piece of me that really wanted to just do the weird voice for Baron, but I didn't want to. They go through the introductions, everything on that one. And it was like, who was going to be the guest referee? Well, now we know why Lacey Evans tapped out so quickly in her match against Becky Lynch. Because Lacey Evans was the ref, and yes, that makes you feel like that maybe the whole Becky Lacey Evans feud is going to continue on with this one as well. Lacey doing traditional heel stuff. Now, this was getting chance of AEW, boring, you could tell the crowd was not very happy, and obviously they were going for that route because Lacey was going to be in the side of Baron Corbin throughout the entire thing to go along with it. So I felt like they got the reaction they wanted, which was not liking the choice in any way. Now the crowd will chant whatever they chant, but overall, they got exactly what they were looking for on that, which was a person that they wouldn't like going being the referee for a match with Seth Rollins and Baron Corbin. Lacey completely on the side of Baron Corbin throughout the entire time. Eventually, Seth Rollins does a powerbomb through the announce table outside of the ring. And he implores Lacey Evans to count, and she counts extremely slowly, just giving Baron all the time in the world that he needs. And then she gets to 8 and it's like, you know what, announcer, come over here. This is now a no count out match. So she was doing the whole changing the rules. And so they continue on throughout the match. Eventually, Baron Corbin decides to start using a steel chair, and he's using it right in front of Lacey Evans. No disqualification, no nothing. And eventually, Lacey's like, give me that chair. I have to do something. And you think she's going to go ring the bell, but then she's like, come here, announcer. It's like, announce that this is now a no DQ match. So he makes the announcement, and they continue on. Lacey Evans, eventually, Seth Rollins hits a Falcon Arrow on a chair to Baron Corbin. Lacey refuses to make the count. She even did a bit earlier in the time where it's like it looked like there was a 3 count, but she got the arm cramp, all the traditional stuff here, and I thought it worked out pretty good, honestly. So Seth Rollins was eventually, kind of having it up to here with Lacey and starts arguing with her, and eventually that leads to Lacey slapping her, or Lacey slapping Seth, and as he had had enough and turned around to go after Baron Corbin, she low blows him and then Baron Corbin hits the end of days. Lo and behold, right as that happened, and it kind of took a while for this to happen too, in all fairness, but Right after the end of days hit, lo and behold, who was heading out to the ring? It was Becky Lynch. She takes care of Lacey Evans, hits a Bexploder outside of the ring as the refs were trying to get her away from Lacey. John Cone takes back over referee control, and this leads to Seth Rollins getting the stomp and picking up the victory. And it was overall a decent enough match. This was kind of more of a TV style main event than it was kind of a pay-per-view main event, to be 100% honest with it. It didn't really necessarily feel special. Felt like something you would get more on a television main event than you would on a pay-per-view. But overall, decent enough match. And Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins celebrate after the match. They kind of played it up like time-wise, that maybe you have some kind of heel turn coming, or if you had some kind of, or something could still happen, but nothing did happen. They did go off the air with Becky and Seth celebrating, and overall, not a bad show. It wasn't a bad show. Yes, the hype wasn't necessarily there going into it, but overall, it came off as still a fairly good show. And it was fairly enjoyable as well. So, in all fairness to Stomping Grounds here, it was, like I said at the beginning, it was a show that maybe had a little bit lackluster in the terms of hype, but it felt like the superstars that were going out there had a little bit of an extra fire lit under them and wanting to put on a good show. And honestly, they did. They did in the end. They put on a fairly good show. Yes, certain points of it were kind of meh. I thought especially the Seth Rollins Baron Corbin match felt kind of TV main event-esque, not pay-per-view level for a main event. In there was definitely little snippets of the cage match where it just felt like it was dragging a little bit in certain areas, but overall I felt like the show came off fairly good. That's basically everything that I got for you on this one. So with that being said, that is my review for WWE Stomping Grounds. For everybody who tuned in, I thank you guys for watching. We will be back hopefully next week with a new episode of God Sauce Turnbuckle. And by the way, I will more than likely be doing some kind of review, whether it be separate or as part of God Sauce Turnbuckle, for AEW's Fyter Fest. I know it's not one of the major ones, but I kind of want to watch it and see how it ends out going, because it's going to be one of their lesser shows. And I kind of want to see how one of their lesser shows end out working before they get onto television to go along with it. So I'm going to try to watch that live, and we will probably have a review for that either in the episode of God Sauce Turnbuckle or a special episode of that as well. So with that being said, thank you guys for watching. Take care and have a great rest of your evening.